538 just released a really cool new feature that allows you to see how Trump and Harris's chances at winning the 2024 presidential race change by winning certain states on election night. Currently, based on their model, Vice President Kamala Harris has a 55% chance of winning this election, slightly better than a coin flip, and she is projected to receive 241 electoral votes to President Donald Trump's 219. So neither candidate is currently favored in enough states to hit that magic number, 270. Keep in mind as well that Trump is currently facing the same odds that the Kansas City Chiefs faced against the San Francisco 49ers in this past Super Bowl. And in case you forgot, unfortunately, the Chiefs won. The point is, unlikely things happen all the time. What we're going to do in this video is play around with the probabilities and correlations in this model. And by correlations, I mean that states' results often move with one another. So, for example, if Trump wins the toss-up, Michigan, that also makes him more likely to win the toss-ups, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. A more extreme example is that if Trump wins Minnesota, a likely blue state, according to the forecast, that would make him almost certain to win the toss-ups. You get the gist. Let's start by filling in all of these safe states for the two candidates. For viewing purposes, I will first fill them in on this map here, and then go ahead and pick a winner here on the tool. That will show you how the odds change. Starting with Kamala Harris, she is almost certain to carry Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii. The Pacific Coast Blue Wall, none of these states have voted for a Republican since 1984. She should also hold Colorado, which is the fastest blue trending state in the nation, as Biden won it by almost 14 points in 2020. And then the Midwest stronghold of Illinois, and up in the Democratic dominant Northeast region, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Oh, and Maine's 1st congressional district. Now, each of these states voted for Biden by at least 15 points in 2020, and the last time that any of them went red was in 1988. That lifts Harris up to her foundational total of 191 electoral votes. If she somehow does not win at least this many on election night, the sky would literally have to be falling on her campaign headquarters. The same can be said for the following solid Trump states as well: Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and Alaska. Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska's statewide election plus the 1st and 3rd districts, South and then North Dakota, as well as down in the South, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Finally, in Appalachia and the Midwest, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. Now, these states lift Trump up to 125 electoral votes. A ways behind Harris is most of the solid red states are more sparsely populated across the middle of the country, and thereby are worth fewer electoral votes than the big blue, highly populated coastal giants like California, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, to name a few. Alrighty, now having plugged in those projections to this tool, you can see that Harris's chances of winning the Electoral College are effectively unchanged at 54%, meaning that if everything goes according to plan in these states, status quo, so to speak, then Trump would be in a slightly better position than the 55% that he started out with. Of course, things not really changing makes sense considering that nothing here comes as a surprise to the model. Things will start to get a little more interesting though as we start filling in the likely states. Now, I personally classify these likely states as those where one party has a clear edge, but an upset is not out of the question like it is in the safe states. I would truly be shocked if they don't vote for the heavily favored candidate, but not floored, if you know what I mean. I know that's kind of subjective, but the statistical equivalent to that is that while Harris or Trump have a better than 95% chance of winning their safe states, likely states are more like 80 to 95%. For Harris, that includes New Mexico. Biden carried New Mexico by 11 points in 2020, and Harris leads by an average of 8.5 points at the moment in the polling average. The VP is also very likely to carry Maine's statewide contest, Biden plus 9 in 2020, and Harris is led by at least that much in every poll this cycle as well. And then finally, its New England neighbor, New Hampshire, enters the likely blue category as well. This was Biden +7 in 2020, and the polls show the VP leading by 7.7% right now on average, with the latest one via the University of New Hampshire showing him up by 11 points. As for the likely Trump states on the map now, Maine's 2nd district does fit that label after it voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020 by 7 percentage points in that most recent cycle. It is extremely rural in one of the least racially diverse districts in the entire country, suggesting that it may trend even further to the right. Trump should also hold Ohio and Iowa, this Midwest tandem that voted for Obama in 2008 and again in 2012, before then shifting hard to the right in the Trump era, as he carried both by more than 8 percentage points in both of those cycles. Now in 2024, Trump leads in Ohio by a little more than 8 points again, based on an average of the last 4 surveys. We have yet to see a single poll in Iowa between Trump and Harris, which is kind of ridiculous, but alas. Now with each of those likely states accounted for, Harris is 202 electoral votes, still ahead of Trump's 149, although that gap has shrunk a bit. And now plugging those projections into this tool here, Harris's odds have actually marginally increased back up to 56%. Still, not much difference there, and again, that's because the model does pretty much already expect each of these states to go the way they have gone. Now let's go ahead and whittle the map down to the toss-ups. Let's fill in the lean states where one party has an edge, but the race is competitive. For Harris, this includes Minnesota with 10 electoral votes, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, 13 electoral votes. Joe Biden carried Minnesota by 7 points in 2020, and Virginia by an even greater 10 points. But now the 2024 polls show a much closer race, with Harris leading by 4.7% in Minnesota, ranging from +3 to +6 over the last 4 polls, and she leads by an almost identical margin here in Virginia, 4.8% over the last 6 polls here, ranging from +2 to +8. Finally, I also have Nebraska's 2nd congressional district leaning towards Harris after Biden carried it by 6.5 points in 2020. It is a left-trending area as it's almost entirely urban, surrounding the city of Omaha, with a large number of college graduates. Now, as for Trump, his lean states are the electoral behemoths of Texas with 40 electoral votes and Florida with 30. These are the 2nd and 3rd largest states in the nation after California. Texas voted for Trump by 5.5 points in 2020. That was the narrowest margin here since 1996, yet with Republicans making significant gains among Hispanics at an extraordinary rate down here in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, it's hard to see Democrats improving much on that margin going forward. It's a somewhat similar story in Florida, Trump +3.4 in 2020. It's one of only 5 states in the country where he improved upon his 2016 performance. Now this was thanks in large part to gains, again, among Hispanics in the Miami-Dade metropolitan area. Actually, South Florida and South Texas saw the strongest pro-GOP trends in the country between 2016 and 2020. And now the polling in Florida has Trump up by exactly 6 points, ranging from +3 to +10. Alrighty, plugging those projections into the tool again, the race has once again dipped back down with Harris at 54% and Trump at 46%, though again, that remains pretty much unchanged. Harris is projected to win 226 electoral votes, Trump 219, with 93 remaining among the 7 key battlegrounds that we have been talking about all cycle long: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. What you'll notice here in a second is that because each of these states are very close to 50-50 at this point, any one projection will shift the odds pretty substantially. So what I'm going to do here is go in order of most to least likely to vote in one direction. I think the state with the strongest lean, but not really lean, more like tilt, toward one candidate is North Carolina for Trump. It's the only one of the 7 states that he carried in 2020. And while the polls once again suggest that it is in play for Harris and the Democrats, Trump still leads by roughly half a point. And even then, Democrats have seen this film before, and they did not like the ending. Notably, Hillary Clinton led Trump in the final polling average in 2016, only to lose by more than 3 points, and likewise in 2020, Biden led, Trump won. Now, for those of you who have followed this channel consistently this cycle, you'll probably know that I'm a big fundamentals guy. The best poll we have is the last election. And to that end, I have North Carolina in the tilt GOP column, lifting him up and ahead of Harris now with 235 electoral votes. Now let's plug that into the tool here. That one projection in North Carolina launches Trump's odds all the way up to 65%. He now has a near 2 in 3 chance of winning this race if he wins North Carolina. Just 6 states to go now, and the next most likely state to vote in one way is Michigan, this one for Harris. It's the most fundamentally blue of the 7 toss-ups, as Joe Biden carried it by almost 3 full percentage points in 2020. And Democrats have enjoyed a series of successes in down-ballot races since then as well. Now, the polls do have Harris up almost 2 points over the last 9 polls, 7 of which show her in the lead, ranging from +1 to +5. Now, with Michigan in the Harris column, her electoral tally is again lifted back ahead of Trump's with 241 to 235. And plugging that into the tool here, Harris is once again favored by an almost identical margin as prior to North Carolina and Michigan, as these 2 projections effectively cancel each other out in the eyes of the model. So the race remains essentially a coin flip with 5 states remaining. Now, I have Trump's next best odds essentially identical in Arizona, 11 electoral votes, and in Georgia, 16 electoral votes. They join North Carolina in the tilt Republican column for the former president. He's got a 65% chance to win in Arizona per Polymarket's latest odds, and a 61% chance right now in Georgia. And the polls do align with Trump up 1.7% on average in Arizona over the last 10 polls, 8 of which show him leading. And then in Georgia, he is up by an almost identical margin, 1.5%, and is led in 8 of the 12 polls included here. Now, Arizona and Georgia were the 2 closest states by margin in 2020. Biden narrowly flipped Arizona by 0.3% and Georgia by 0.2%. Both wins marked the first time either state has gone blue since the Bill Clinton era back in the 90s. Now, if we plug those projections into the model here, Trump's odds skyrocket back up to 72%. So if he holds North Carolina and flips Arizona and Georgia, while Harris holds Michigan, the model believes he would have a 72% chance of hitting 270, with the remaining toss-ups being Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada. Now, this is because Harris needs to carry at least 2 out of the 3 remaining toss-ups, while Trump only needs 1. If that 1 is Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, he would still fall short of 270 if he only wins in Nevada. On that note, the next most likely state to vote in one direction is indeed Nevada, which I have tilting in the direction of Kamala Harris. Those 6 electoral votes lift her up to 247. Nevada is a toss-up according to Polymarkets, where Harris is slightly favored at 53%. I do deviate, though, from the markets here in the sense that they do give Harris a better chance of winning Wisconsin at 56%. Again, this is due to fundamentals. Nevada voted for Biden by 2.5 points in 2020, while he only won Wisconsin by 0.6%. And I always make sure to note that the polls in Wisconsin have notoriously underestimated Trump in both of the last 2 cycles, more than any other state actually, by almost 7 points in 2016, and then by almost 8 points in 2020, whereas they were much more accurate in Nevada, actually overestimating him by a point in 2016, and then underestimating him by 3 in 2020. On that note, the polls right now show Harris leading Trump by a little over a point in Nevada over the 10 surveys here, and she is leading in 6 of them. Meanwhile, in Wisconsin, she only leads by 0.5 percentage points over the last 9 surveys here. That is the narrowest it's been since it became clear that Kamala Harris would become the new Democratic nominee. Alrighty, let's head to the tool now for a final time. If we project that Nevada will vote for Harris, Trump remains the favorite, but it is back down to about a 2 in 3 chance at 66 in 100. It now all comes down to the 2 remaining upper Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. We've talked about Wisconsin, now let's take a look at Pennsylvania. Polymarket has the Keystone States as the closest on its map. Trump 51%, Harris 49%. And that tracks with the polling, where the average is literally tied. 6 of the last 13 surveys were tied, while Trump leads in 4 and Harris in 3. Remarkably close there. And with that in mind, it's truly impossible to project which way Pennsylvania goes at this point. Though in this case, it doesn't actually matter, as I personally have Wisconsin in the tilt GOP category on my map right now, keeping in mind the prior polling errors and the fact that it has voted to the right of both Michigan and Pennsylvania in both of the last 2 cycles. And that lifts Trump up to 272 electoral votes, meaning that if we place Wisconsin in his column here in the tool, his odds hit 100%, obviously. Even if Harris holds Pennsylvania, she would still fall short of 270 at 266. But this is my map as it stands right now. That does it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Shout out to my channel members in the description below. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel, and please leave a like on the video as well if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.